You buckled in because we're about to hit the road to the Dallas 100 and go 0 to 100. Hey folks, I'm your host Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and welcome to another live episode of The Road to the Dallas 100, where we celebrate the fastest growing privately owned businesses in Dallas and previous winners of the SMU Cox Dallas 100 Awards. So thank you again for joining us live here on MarketScale.com. And again, folks, this is a precursor to SMU's Cox Dallas 100 Awards, and the road to the Dallas 100 is showcasing the stories behind previous winners of the awards who, again, are the fastest growing privately held companies in the Dallas area. So here on the show, we're going to be celebrating the company's founders and their achievements, their business journey, their challenges, their strategies, so that you can learn from Dallas's best and take the keys yourself, get behind the wheel, and pave your own road to the Dallas 100. So thanks again for joining us, folks. Let's hit the gas. Who are we showcasing today on the show? Well, today we have two guests, which is very exciting because I'm excited to see how our two founders riff off of each other and really, pull out those core memories, right? But again, today we have two guests joining us for the first time on the road to the Dallas 100, both who are co-founders of N08, which is a Dallas-based tech studio that empowers companies to design and develop innovative, impactful digital products. The two founders come from very different backgrounds, but both had an early environment immersed in entrepreneurship. They took a chance on each other's vision for the software development market and founded their business in 2015, and in just a few years grew their business rapidly to great success. They were Dallas 100 winners in 2019, and one of the founders actually won with another company in 2020. So we're excited to highlight and learn from these two great founders. I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Jeff Francis, president and founder of N08, and Rishi Khanna, CEO and founder of N08. Jeff, Rishi, great to have you all both on. How we doing?
Really well. Thanks for having us here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure getting to learn from your stories each week. We land on similar topics, but the road to the Dallas 100 is different for each entrepreneur and each company. And I think that's what makes these special. So I'm excited to learn from both of y'all today. And I also want to shout out to our audience. Make sure that you are putting your questions in chat. Our chat is live. So if you have any questions for our founders as we get into the conversation, I will be shouting those out live to our founders here, either interspersed in the conversation or towards the very end. So, all right, let's get into it. There's a lot of story to tell, right? I want to rewind. We always start with the early days here, right? I want to hear about each of your kind of foundational memories and early experiences that guided you or planted the seeds for an entrepreneurial journey, right? Rishi, let's start with you. So tell us a little bit about your family life as a kid, because I know that there are a few entrepreneurs in your family, and I'm curious what sort of seeds those planted for you in terms of this desire to maybe build your own business, be your own boss. Reminisce for us a little bit.
It's great, actually a great story. So both my parents are entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, and they both had their separate businesses. My dad had a business in electronics, and my mom had a business in apparel, high fashion apparel. And so growing up, we would, my sister and I would spend some time after school or on the weekends, and the work life used to be Monday through Saturday. It wasn't like Friday, so it was a 6-day week.
Sure.
So we would hang out with my parents, in their offices, respective offices, and sort of get to expose ourselves to the business that they were in. And during that course, they would lean on us to get some advice or help, mostly about, hey, what do you think about this? And you know what? The reality is that we didn't know what we were answering, but the fact that they involved us into those conversations allowed us to sort of be part of it. And soon after, my father decided to sell his business, and that got a chance for us to see how that process works. And then my mom and dad decided working together. So having two entrepreneurs, husband and wife, working together in the business. And then soon after, when my sister graduated from college, she joined the business, and there sort of was this opportunity for me to also join the family business. So I did get exposed to entrepreneurship early on, and so that sort of was the foundation of me. I thought, and knowing that my parents wanted me to join the business, I already knew that I'm going to join something which will be business related, just that I didn't know it was going to be their business or something else.
Sure. What were some of those benefits then of having that kind of environment to learn the ropes without as much pressure, right? Or they could ask you for advice and, they probably knew like, well, I don't know if his advice necessarily going to be applied, but at the same time, they've still trusted you enough to bring you into the process and get your wheels turning. So how do you feel like that impacted how you approach business today?
Realize very early on is that business is not just the entrepreneur, it's the people that help you, support you through the process.
Yeah.
And when we look at great entrepreneurs on television or in newspapers and we learn about them, and we feel that, hey, that gentleman or that lady must have done it all by herself. But the reality is that it's the people behind the scenes that make that happen. And so I learned very early on that it takes a team to make a great business, and that was sort of the learning from that process, that it requires, and how you treat them and the culture that you build in the organization is extremely important to be able to sort of have those times away from work when they actually run the business when you are not.
Right. All right, Jeff, we'll cut over to you now. So I know you're a small town guy, right? And I know that there was definitely a proximity to entrepreneurship, whether in your family or sort of close friends. So tell us a little bit about your early days and how you were kind of first exposed to that desire to maybe build your own company.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I've grown up in the Dallas area, small town not far from here.
Nice.
And my dad had a small business. I think, looking back, it was a small business. It wasn't like really being an entrepreneur, and it had a lot of success with that, but didn't really build a business that would sort of take on its own life, right?
Sure.
And I think that was sort of one early influence of kind of getting exposed to running a business and seeing one way of doing it. And then, I think, probably one of the big milestones for me going down this path was really in college, really early college, when I was trying to decide what degree plan to file and what path to take there. And I went home to visit my family for the weekend, and there was a guy that I went to high school with, and his dad owned several businesses, was very involved in the community, and I just saw he made a really big impact. It was very generous. One specific thing I remember I was in Boy Scouts, and he would always sponsor several of the kids each year for summer camp, that kind of thing. And
nice.
So you see that impact from a lot of things that he had built. And I remember leaving my parents' house and driving by this apartment community that he had, and then there was a grocery store and the other business, and so it just really got me to thinking about, one of the things that resonates with me is feeling like I'm building something, right? And so I think that sort of builder gene is something that's shown up for me a lot, and I think that's something that really drew me to sort of that path.
Yeah. So on one hand, we have motivation and inspiration from community, from collaboration. On the other hand, again, also community, but sort of the impact of business on that wider community and the role that business can play beyond just being your project, but something that impacts the world around you, right? I love both of those, and I have a feeling we'll hear how those seeds blossomed later in your career journey. You kind of already touched on this, but was this always the path that you saw yourselves go down? I mean, I know for me it was like, I'm going to be an astronaut one day. And no, that didn't happen. Here we are. So, were there other career aspirations? Were there other sort of desires to go down a different path? And if so, what was that pivot, that push that really solidified for you? No, I want to take a risk and I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to build something for my own.
So for me, as I shared that, it was sort of discussed at home that, hey, when Rishi grows up and he graduates from college, he's going to join the family business.
Yes, he's going to take over.
He's going to take over one day. And I sort of grew up with that mindset. And when I went to UT Austin from undergrad, I realized that no, I don't want that for my future. Sure. I want to first of all educate myself well. Second, I want to join something in consulting. I felt very. One of my purpose is to make an impact. I want to see, how I can get some foundational experience in consulting to be able to then start something on my own. Nice. And I didn't. I mean, I knew there's going to be something on technology, and we could probably get into that at some point. But I also knew something with consulting, and so I knew that fairly early. And then, but the time I had at UT Austin allowed me to figure out, hey, you know what? For me, joining family business was not my thing. I wanted to do something on my own, start something from scratch, something which I would be passionate about, and something I would enjoy doing. I didn't really get fascinated by apparel business.
Yeah. So more taking on the heart of what you learned from your parents.
That's right.
But not necessarily the form of sitting down and doing that business.
And my parents didn't take that very well, just to...
I imagine. Was that... Well, that brings up a good point. Was that tough then, having to kind of maneuver being like, look, I learned from y'all, I learned from the best, I want to follow in your footsteps, just not your road. Was that a tough conversation to have?
It was tough at first, because my father, sort of was hoping and praying that that's going to happen because he wanted to get some extra hands in the business to be able to grow it, and he had a vision for the business, and he was leaning on my sister and I to join him, and my sister did, but I did not, and so that sort of was a little letdown for him. My mom was indifferent. She was very excited that, hey, I was going to do something on my own, and so that was encouraging. But my dad, eventually when he said, hey, you do something in technology, go for it, because the internet was all over, in late 90s, was all over,
It was that hip new
It was a hip new thing. So my dad said, why don't you give it a shot, and if you don't do well, you always have my business to lean on.
True.
Or if nothing else, go back and get your MBA.
Right.
Yeah.
That MBA, that classic MBA.
That's right.
Well, you actually segued me perfectly into this next question, but N08 obviously is a software development company, digital innovation and product studio. Was software development or computer science or STEM or anything in that field something that fascinated you both early on, right? Was that kind of always if I'm going to start my own company, it's going to be in this zone? Or I guess, what was your relationship to this industry or environment?
So growing up, I grew up in India, and in our school, we had access to computers. And so we had access to computers since kindergarten, but we learned how to program in third grade. So I started programming very early on. And I got very fascinated by computers, and my dad got me a laptop back when I was a kid. That was a big deal, right? I'm not having a desktop, but having a laptop. But anyhow, when I got an opportunity to choose my concentration in 11th and 12th grade, in India, education system allows you to choose finance, or in this case they call it commerce, biology, chemistry, physics, or computer science. I chose computer science as my space. Nice. So I did get into computers very early, and I started programming very early. And then when I graduated from high school, I helped my dad build his first e-commerce site in 1995.
Oh wow. Okay, you were an early e-commerce adopter then.
I was an early internet adopter.
I like that. Cool.
And how the conversation started is very fascinating for me. Is my dad said, hey, you know what, son, what is internet and why does everybody talk about it? That's how it started on a dinner table. And then I had to tell my dad what it was, and then I said, this is what we can do with the business. And then I built him something, and he was like amazed by that this could even be possible.
So you learned early the impact that a quality digital product could have on businesses that needed it, that needed to evolve to the times.
That's right.
So that's super cool. Jeff, on your end, what role does STEM, computer science, software development, anything kind of play in your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, mine's probably less technical
Cool.
as the origin. It's probably more about the product and sort of the business side of how you can solve problems with software. And I think for me, one thing that comes to mind is in college, there was some alumni from a fraternity that I was in that they were starting a SaaS company, which nobody really knew what that was at the time. And that you were starting to hear about products like Salesforce, right? And software that you run over the internet. And so it wasn't so much that the engineering of software was the thing that drew me first. It was, I knew that was a really big, and it was about to be a booming space, and I wanted to be around it somehow. And so had a meeting with these guys. They were just starting the company, and they were looking for a sales intern, and basically make cold calls, 100, 150 calls a day, setting appointments, and it's brutal.
The pain,
but, it was, but so many good lessons from that. For me, unknowingly, that I was already sort of working in a role that I had some sort of unique talents for. And what was cool about being sort of the first employee in this software startup was I was doing sales, so I was understanding what are customers looking for, what are their problems, what are they looking to solve, what would they be willing to buy. And then because we were so small, I was working with the co-founder who was developing the software, and as we grew that team, so I was having to sort of talk to developers, understand how hard is this to do, what would this look like to incorporate into the product, talk to customers, what's valuable, sort of connect those dots. And looking back, sort of that intersection there of pulling those two different sort of skills together has been something I lean on a lot, within 08 today.
Totally.
For sure. I mean, I think that product mindset was something that he built during that experience.
Yeah, it was big. Yeah, it's big.
Totally. And we'll get into that here in a little bit too. I want to kind of tease another theme that we're going to break down here on today's episode of the show. That's partnership, really, right? Since this is our first episode with two co-founders, I really want to emphasize that collaborative spirit, the opportunities that come from that, and the challenges, obviously, you have to work through as well. So, again, this is a big theme, but I just want to start by asking, did y'all expect that when you embarked on this kind of entrepreneurial journey, when you were like, I want to start my own business, and you were like, I'm going to settle into an entrepreneurial career path through college and really build those skills, did you always envision doing it in a partnership with a co-founder, right? Being like, I need a team to make sure that I do this. Or did you kind of see yourselves as lone wolves to start? I'm going to be that trailblazer who works alone and makes it happen alone. What was your relationship to that, I guess, as you were visualizing this path for yourself?
So, I have a parallel business along the way, and I started my entrepreneurship journey around 99.
Okay.
So I have had the experience of being in business lone wolf, as a lone wolf, and also with a partner. And I think they both have their pros and cons. But I would just say that having a partner who complements you and has complementary skills and brings in that complementary value to the business and allows you to co-share this vision and that drive to make it happen is really, really important, because at the end of the day, you need someone to sort of cheerlead that thing along the way. And when Jeff and I, got exposed to that, I mean, I felt, I saw something in him that allowed me to say, hey, you know what, I'm comfortable with this relationship, and we should probably do something together.
Totally.
Yeah, I think maybe in concept, I'd thought about this lone wolf, because I think a lot of times entrepreneurship gets over glamorized, right?
It has that culture of
it's different. I think even if I think about early on when I started it, the advice I would give to myself back then would be that this is going to be a whole lot harder than you ever think it's going to be. Sure. And it's going to take a whole lot longer than you think it will ever take. And so I think that's something that looking back, I'd kind of thought of an entrepreneur as the lone wolf. But I think, sort of as Rishi said, one of the big lessons that I think I've learned and that we've learned together is that one of the greatest skill sets of a really good entrepreneur is building awesome teams and figuring out what types of people you need involved. And whether it's employees, whether it's partners, or it's some kind of collaboration effort, it's connecting those dots and figuring out what's the right way to assemble a group of people that can really take on something. And that's something I think that needs to be talked about more, is that it's those big successes are very rarely lone wolf scenarios.
Right. And I think the key skill that an entrepreneur needs to have is to be able to identify that talent and get out of their own way.
I feel that.
And be able to provide that empower someone else to take on charge and make it happen, and for you and with you and for the business itself. So that's important. It's a tough skill to build, but it's something that really is required to think, not just co-founder, but core team.
Yeah. Because it's about striking that right balance between being self-confident enough, obviously, to take the risk, but also humble enough to know where you're going to need support.
That's
and
right.
Where your own gumption or vision just probably isn't going to be enough. You need that second set of eyes to say, yeah, I agree, that's good, or I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
I think that played big with us. I mean, I think having that self-awareness to understand yourself on what are the things that I'm really good at, or where are the things that I'm not very strong at. And I think that was probably one of the key factors of me and Rishi deciding to partner up on this business together, is as an example, like one of the things I love about Rishi is he's a quick start mentality. He, like can take action really quick.
Love it.
I tend to be a little bit more analytical, and if left unchecked, that can have its own problems too. And I think that was something that I knew about myself, that like that's going to help make us like really effective together.
I relate to that big time.
Yeah.
I'm a big wheel spinner, and I got to get all my ducks in a row. Yeah. I could probably use a Rishi in my life too. So
Be careful what you wish for.
yeah, right, exactly. Careful what you wish for. Right? Yeah, okay. So, all right. So let's talk partnership then. I feel like we're on that train. I want to highlight this for our audience because I think it just speaks to the chance that y'all took, but y'all weren't like friends or anything before this. You didn't really know each other all that well. So I want to hear that story from y'all, but I just want to highlight that for an audience. Be willing to take some chances and risks, right? With people that in your gut you feel like, this is the right choice. So I'm curious, let's just start simple, a little dating show action. How'd you guys meet? Yeah, let's do it.
That's also a very interesting story. So Jeff and I met around 2011 at a startup pitch event. And we just sort of got to introduce ourselves and got to know each other. And we probably met a few times during that course. But then we lost touch for a few years in the middle. And then in 2015, Jeff and I were both invited to a talk show event, having a staged event where Jeff and I happened to sit next to each other in this round table. And then we got reconnected. And so that's how we sort of started to have conversations on, and then that led us to have our wives meet, and then we met a bunch of times, and Jeff shared with me that he was looking to leave the organization he was part of at that point and start something new, and I shared with him, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and he said, this is what I'm thinking, and that led to one thing led to the other to be able to figure out, hey, you know what, this could be a good partnership. I mean, I would love to see whether we can work together.
It's interesting hearing you talk about that, because it makes me think that sort of the initiation of us starting the business wasn't that we had this idea and then we should partner on that idea. It was more that we think there's a potential partnership here that could be really good. And so what exactly is that concept that we think that we should partner up on?
Interesting. So you actually bet more on the partnership than you did on a shared vision for a company at first.
We did find a gap that we wanted to fill in the marketplace, obviously. But the thing is that we felt that there was a complementary skill that we can actually solve that problem together.
Nice.
We saw that a common vision, and we saw the complementary skills to be able to go, tackle that. And so that came in very strong. And then, one thing left to the other, and then here we are.
Here we are.
Running a good business here.
I love it. So I want to hear from both of y'all. What was the motivating factor that kind of sold the partnership to y'all, right, for the other person? And how did you know it was a right fit? Maybe what were those complementary skill sets that you were like, I could have this, and it will help both of us elevate?
Yeah. It's sort of funny to look back at it now, because it's turned out to be quite different now than what we thought that was going in, I think.
Which we'll get into a little later, too.
Yeah. So I think going into it, I mentioned one earlier about like sort of just personality type and the way that we work, generally. I think we both really knew that we'd been around technology and we had a lot of experience doing it, and so there's a lot of lessons from that experience that we could sort of figure out how to do it better. And I think that one of the things that we knew together is that different technologies are always going to come and go, and sort of the big theme that we wanted to get ahead of is that innovation isn't going to go away, right? So we really felt like that was sort of where we both had experience that we could line up and tackle that together.
Love it.
And then, I think besides the innovation, but I think we both had deep experience with Jeff's product experience from the previous organization that he was part of, and then my experience being in software development for some time. That allowed us to use our past experience to build a great story around what we're trying to solve for. And we saw there was a big gap in this space. And that experience allowed us to really get aligned easily. And we didn't have to sort of learn the process of what we're trying to solve. We knew what we were solving. We already were educated and lived that life till that point. So it was very easy to take the next step. So I think that experience was a key thing, our complementary skill sets that came in handy. And then we knew very early on that we were going to be able to solve multiple issues in building the organization. And we also knew early on there were going to be other skills that we would need to bring in. So that I would just say that that openness to realizing what we're good at, what we're not good at, was good. But then we learned more. I mean, that was not it. There was a lot more learning. We didn't realize that we would be a lot more learning as we started the business, after the fact.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you brought this up, but obviously the scope of that partnership evolves, right? Sort of knowing your role in that partnership also evolves. I'm curious how you approach defining those roles early on in the process and where you've seen them change over the years and some of the learning lessons that you've both gained from that process.
Sure. I mean, so we did lay out our initial roles and responsibility plan around the organization, and we looked at what we had deep experience in, we thought, and what we didn't ask one question is, do you like doing this? That was not a question that we asked. What we asked was, hey, have you done it before? And hey, it seems that you got experience. And so we chose our roles based on just a quick, meeting, and then say, let's start with that.
Yeah.
And then we got started, and we realized very soon that there were certain things that I was good at, and some things he was good at, and certain things we both didn't enjoy doing, and we were doing it, and we were sort of not doing a good job of it. So that allowed us to realign and readjust our roles along the way. And the role that we're playing today, where we are actually spending, I would say, 80% of our time doing what we're really uniquely good at, and 20% of the time, letting other people take on and delegate those things out, has actually been a really good experience for us. So I think the journey has been very rewarding because we progressively got a chance to be open and honest about, hey, we need to hire someone else for this. This is something I don't want to do, but I know somebody else can do much better, and let's go grab someone who's actually going to be able to do this better.
Totally.
Yeah. I think that we use a few different frameworks for just managing the business, and really early on we sort of identified an accountability chart and put names on the boxes, right? And
nice.
The early version of that chart had our name on a whole bunch of boxes.
Yeah.
And so I think as we grew our team and expanded our capabilities and just got better, we reconfigured that, and I think that's where, as we got more familiar with working with one another, we sort of honed that over time.
I mean, also affordability, right? We were able to afford to bring other people along the way as the business grew. So it's not just about that, hey, let's try to hire someone and we have no way to compensate them. But there was ideas to, as we were able to afford, we brought in people who could solve the big problems, and then we took out some problems to solve up until even today, where we still have to hire more really good talent to be able to take those things on.
You brought something up that I find important. It's that balance of what are you good at versus what do you want to do, right? What do you want to take on in this journey? Something I relate to a lot. I do music outside of this, and I do it with a partner. So there's often that pull between this is what I am good at, what I really want to do. I want to devote all my time there. But then what I'm actually needed for is here. And if I don't put my energy here, it's not actually going to advance the shared cause, right? How did y'all approach internally and kind of externally finding that balance for yourselves? Because I know that's a toughie.
So we use a tool called ABC.
Okay,
A is, hey, I'm good at this, but I don't enjoy doing it. I can do it as long as you want me to, but I'm not really enjoying it. B is, hey, I can do it, but anyone else can do it as good as me. So let me find someone else to do it. Let me delegate this out.
Nice.
And C is something I really enjoy doing. I love doing it, and I will keep doing it. If you give me 10 things to do, I'll do those things first.
Love it.
So we every quarter we sit down and look at an activity list, and then we see, hey, what can we give out to someone else and delegate those things out. And so we've been really good about using that tool.
Nice.
And that thing has been really useful for us, and we've been teaching that tool to our team members because I think that allows them to move up the value chain and do better things as well.
Totally.
And the reality is when you're early on in that journey, right? I mean, when we first started, it was literally just the two of us, right? You have to do a whole lot more of those things that you don't really like doing, or the things that maybe you're not even that great at. And so it's just a refining process, but it doesn't stop with us. I think when you can kind of combo something that somebody's really good at and something they get like a good energy boost off of and they really enjoy or gravitate towards doing it, that's, you really get a lot better performance out of everything. So it doesn't really stop with me and Rishi. That's something we look for in our team, to help sort of over time, evolve those roles too.
Of course.
So one of our core values is passion, and we want to see what are you passionate about, what do you love doing, what do you and what do you want to keep doing. And so we want to make sure that everyone we attract in the organization, the problem that we try to solve has to be their core love for that problem to solve. If they don't love that problem to solve, then who's solving that problem? So passion is important. So we check for that passion up front, and so we're able to then bring in those people. And then we also want, within the first 3 to 6 months, we want to figure out, hey, what do you really love doing? So you did very well in the interview.
Yeah, right.
You share this, but I feel that you like something else, but not this. And so we want to make sure that everyone is working and leveraging their core unique abilities and their superpowers to be able to build a great business.
Yeah, totally.
And be a great resource for the organization and their families.
I mean, there's no better team than one that likes doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. So I totally resonate with that. Let's talk those early days, right, of crafting the business. So again, you mentioned that you saw a gap in the market in the sort of digital product, software development space. Something was missing, right? Briefly describe that for us, right? What was that gap that you felt N08 could fill?
Yeah, I think there's really kind of two things. I think if you ask anybody in business, do you think that innovation is important? Almost everybody would say yes, right? But
Sure.
I think trying to make that tangible though, like what does that even mean, and how do we do that, and how do we do that repeatedly, is something that there's a lot of people struggle with. And so that was one element of it. And then a lot of the innovation that we focus on is what we sort of call like digital innovation or product development. And it's sort of well known that digital product efforts have a failure rate that's way higher than it really needs to be. And so I think if we think about give our clients the tools, the guidance, and the process to sort of make innovation tangible, and then at the same time really reduce a lot of the risk of pursuing a lot of these initiatives. And so kind of that premise is really what guided us to create the innovation lab that we use.
Well, Stephen Covey says, right, let's get clear about, let's start with the end in mind. And so we start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
So we start the process, which we call innovation lab, and that allows us to get the stakeholders, core stakeholders of the organization, or the client's organization, get extremely clear about what we're trying to solve. Is the solution right? Get product market fit up front, and then go and solve it. So we have very clear, like almost a non-workable prototype up front that allows us to go and build that for them instead of being a little vague about it, right? So one of the things that we talk about is that you don't start building a house without a blueprint. Why would you start building a software without one?
So then, if we look back in the 2015 era of SaaS development, of building a company that is helping other companies digitally innovate, what were some of the challenges, right? What were some of those early days like of addressing that gap and then trying to build a company that in practice could actually fill that gap and do something unique for the software development and digital innovation markets?
I think we did get off to a great start, but then we did not. And when I say that, what that is that we started to attract and start working with a lot of customers that were not in the core service offering, in the sense that we were still building software, but the customer's core values or the customer's problems or the customer's appreciation for the process that we were trying to adopt was not a great mix, and so that led for us to be a little more derailed from the core path that we started off doing. And so once we had that realization, in fact, it was Jeff's birthday, and we were having a lunch, and then we sat down on this great bench in Shops at Legacy. And we had this conversation. I said, Jeff, I don't think we are doing the right thing. We're not doing what we started off, got in the business for.
Interesting.
And that he said, you're right. I feel the same. And then we made the changes right away.
Interesting.
That was a great birthday lunch.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we had an original vision, and I think it's easy to get caught up when you're trying to build revenue, right? I mean, you're trying to build revenue, you're trying to build capabilities, trying to build a portfolio. And so, you sometimes like take on projects that may not align with that broader vision, right? I mean, in a lot of respects, I think we're really grateful and thankful for that because it helped us build capabilities and we were able to hire people and start to like really build an organization.
Right.
But that was a turning point moment for us, I think, of just being honest that we're not aligned with what our original vision was, and we're not happy about that. So like, let's just be honest about where we're at right now and figure out what to do.
So we became very selective about who we work with. We want to make sure that the clients have the same appreciation for the process that we're going to adopt, and we are not going to sort of change the course of the process entirely just to serve the client's desire to sort of run the process. So another analogy we say is that when you go to a great steakhouse, let's say Del Frisco, and you want to have a steak, you don't tell the server, hey, make the steak this way, put this much salt, put this much whatever.
Right.
And so we don't want to spoil the recipe. So we have a recipe for success, and we want to make sure that clients have the appreciation for the recipe that we are trying to bring forward, and we don't want to deviate from it as much as one would desire.
Well, that's both that's both trying to solidify a process, but also putting a lot of your chips in the experience itself, right?
That's
I mean, obviously the product has to work at the end of the day, the innovation has to be quality, but really it's about trust us, get in on this experience with us of building the right solution, and I promise you by the end of it, if you follow these steps, you're going to be pleased with the outcome.
That's right.
Yeah.
What are some challenges of building a company that bets so many of its chips on the experience, almost as primary to the product? I mean, obviously the product has to be good, but the experience comes first, right? So what are some challenges of building a company that puts that first?
The experience of the customer working with us.
Exactly, right. Like that customer experience of going through the process of building the solution in the way that y'all have kind of laid the roadmap out, right? And then communicating that to them where they're confident, they feel good about the process, they trust you. What are some challenges in building a company that has that kind of business model, I guess?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is building trust.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a business where our clients are in essence really buying trust, right? Like, do they believe that we have the expertise? Do they believe we have the track record and experience and the process and the people and all that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of service businesses, that can be a pretty big challenge. So I think that's one of the big priorities up front is building trust with the customer, but also us being really honest with ourselves on, is this a right fit for us? Do we know that we can do a good job on this? And being willing to say no to some things if we just know that that's getting outside of our space of true expertise, right? And what's funny about that is that by doing that, that sort of builds more trust, right? And so I think that's a big part of it. And then I think for us also is staying true to like what we know works. And the confidence behind that of we know that this works. Like we have a lot of confidence in our system, we have a lot of confidence in our team, and if we get off of that script, our risk of failure goes up. So we really have to stay true to that.
Totally.
I mean, a simple example I will give is that we follow Scrum, an agile process, and so we follow that to the T, right? We don't do kind or sort of agile, we do agile. So the key is how do we ensure that we stay true to the process that we adapt as our way to get to success. Right. And so we don't deviate too much from it. We follow the manifesto, and we follow the rituals and the ceremonies that are laid out by the process itself.
Love it.
One thing that I think about if we're sort of looking at this on sort of the road that we followed or that other entrepreneurs might follow in building a business, that I think is pretty significant to me is that when you're really small and you're in this kind of business where you're interacting with clients a lot, it can be a little bit painful as you grow and you start to add people to your team, and maybe those clients that you've worked with for a long time aren't working directly with you every day. I know that looking back, that was a tough challenge to work through, right? Because you don't want clients to not think that you don't care, but at the same time, you have to be able to grow the business, which ultimately is good for everybody. But that's not easy. When you're a small business and you're growing and you're adding people to the team, clients naturally want to have you with your personal attention on it.
Right.
And that's just really hard to scale, right? And so I think that's something that you need to be prepared for and have some extra touch along with clients as you're sort of making that transition.
Right. And building the team to be able to inspire that trust too,
Exactly.
without you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if anything, you're having to prove to the client that, you have to trust our trust and these teammates
Right.
to deliver on what you liked about meeting us or what
Right.
you liked about the initial vision. Bob Jones here is going to be able to execute on that. Just trust us on that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, those are challenges. Let's talk accomplishments. What was one of those first big moments where N08 really locked it in and you felt like, wow, we have done the hard work, we're moving in the right direction, and we are really scaling. Things are good.
So we actually early on after we set our organization based on that bench conversation, we actually landed a big enterprise customer.
Nice.
And that allowed us to really help us build the business, start scaling, start hiring the right people, and getting ready for prime time, right? And then something happened. Pandemic hit, and we lost the key customer that we were so dependent on. And we were reinvesting every penny of profit out of that to build the organization to be less dependent on that key customer. Oof. But then what we did not have control over and we did not see coming was a pandemic, and that was again a second turning point that brought in a lot of learning for our organization.
Yeah, and I think we had sort of a couple of big arcs, right? That early one pre-pandemic, where we really thought we had made it and everything is up and to the right from here. And I just think that's a lesson, is that that never happens.
Yeah.
So it never is smooth sailing and in a constant straight line. But I think, coming out of the pandemic, one of the big things that I feel like we really got clear on is being better about what differentiates us and how do we communicate that with clients. And then all of a sudden, as we got really clear about that for ourselves and could communicate that a lot better, all of a sudden conversations with potential customers was way different, right? And so they were able to see like what was different about us, what we were sort of really good at solving. And that for me, that was sort of light bulb moment where all of a sudden these sales calls are much different. It's like, okay, they get this, right? We're on to something like big here.
So when you go through the valley of death, right? You realize, hey, what's my core? What am I really good at? And what differentiates me in the organization and also in the marketplace? And then you realize, what? We have to lean on the process that we built. And luckily, we had invested a lot of time and energy in building a great process, which allowed us to double down on that towards the end of 2020. And it resonated big time. And that allowed us to come back up and grow business again. So I think that investment of time, energy, and being core to our original journey that we were set on allowed us to get back up.
Yeah.
And we did not. Very easy it's for as entrepreneurs and as business owners to say, let me just add this other service, and even if it's not a core competency. We were very disciplined about the fact that no, we're going to focus on what we set off doing because we had that conversation on the bench.
Yeah.
We are not going to deviate from it. We're going to make that happen, and we may pivot from it, but we're not going to move away from it.
Yeah. Not foundationally reinvest in some other new segment.
That's right.
Yeah. And that was a really uncertain time. I mean, for a lot of businesses, but I mean, we weren't quite sure what the future looked like for us at that point, right? But I know this, that we really, that's where we did a lot of shuffling on roles and looking at how we do things, and we changed a whole lot in a really short amount of time.
Yeah.
And, and looking back, it really served us really well, right? But although it didn't look like it at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rocky road, but I think we made good decisions, and even if we didn't, we learned from them quickly, and we pivoted quickly.
Yeah.
And then I think Jeff and I, what's worked really well between Jeff and I has been we've been able to bring these conversations up, fairly quickly to make sure that we are on the same page, and his core of being deep thinker and an analyzer, and my core of action taker came in handy.
Yeah.
Because we were able to quickly resolve any challenges that we were up against.
Well, Rishi, Jeff, this has been great so far.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end here of the road, at least just this one road. But I want to put an audience question in front of you here. So we had an audience member, her name is Jessica, weigh in with this question. Any advice or pitfalls to avoid for someone starting a SaaS business right now? So maybe draw from some of your learning lessons of building one in the past, but then contextualize it around what's the market like today? Any advice you would give?
I have some thoughts.
Yeah, go for
it.
So one of them is, it sounds like maybe she's pretty early. Investors aren't writing checks for ideas.
Yeah.
So I think you have to have your concept more baked out, I think, and you have to be better prepared. And so one of a few elements that we'd like to try to talk about is this concept of minimum lovable product, right? What really is it that you can launch something with that will be lovable by that set of users, right? And getting really clear on that piece of it, right? And then avoiding the mistake of jumping into trying to develop something too quick, right? So I think really getting clear about why is this valuable, and then enough detail about what does it look like, how will I build it, actually how long will it take, how much will it really cost? Like that extra time spent in the beginning getting clear on some of the big things that typically will plague companies later on in the process can really make a big difference. So
I'll just add one thing. Have beta customers who are going to be listening to all this conversation about, hey, the product, and being able to validate upfront so that you don't go and build something that nobody wants and nobody's willing to write a check for. And then you'll be able to even validate the pricing model of the SaaS product upfront, so you know what they will write to you, and then you can work the mechanics and the financials around it upfront before you even write anything, do anything.
Yeah. Having ready to go customers
is a key.
The bigger,
Yeah, know your market, know your product, and be able to chart those first few steps clearly, right, before taking.
I'm saying don't build it; they are not going to come unless you build it with upfront with the customers in mind.
Test first.
Very fair, very fair. All right. So last but not least, I want to get y'all's thoughts on Dallas 100. Obviously, so you both won in 2019. I'm curious what that experience was like for you, and what benefits you've seen post Dallas 100. The connections, the expansion possibilities, anything like that.
So we talked about this earlier, that Jeff and I both are graduates of the SMU Entrepreneur Startup Business course, and so we both did that early on.
Nice.
And so we knew about Dallas 100 for a while, and I think it's a very recognized very well in DFW market, and also is very prestigious, and also sort of creates a some level of credibility and trust in the marketplace when you actually are on the list.
Totally.
So that was one big thing that we saw, and then by being in Dallas 100 and being at the events way back in 2019, we got a chance to meet other customers who are our customers who are also on the list, and also other peers that we sort of grew up with from business standpoint, and network around with them, and got a chance to learn about that. And lastly, I think because we were on the list, some of the people that we connected with also reached out and said, "Hey, can you help us?"
Yeah.
So it was a good exposure to us and our business and theirs, and we've been using some of the services of the other companies as well. So
I think it's very validating, and I think it gave us a lot of exposure. We met a lot of new people too, and I think it's really good for Dallas also. I think people are starting to realize that Dallas is a really great place to start businesses, and I think this brings a lot of good attention to that fact that we're very fortunate here, where you have access to a lot of resources, a lot of talent, and there's a lot going on here. So I'm really excited about that.
And it's a big market, a lot of customers. You can do only so much with talent and resources if we have no customers to sell it to.
That is true.
A lot of customers here.
There's a lot of people moving here.
A lot of people moving here.
The businesses are moving here. The people are moving here.
You don't have to look outside this market.
I agree. Yeah, the energy's hot for sure, and I think you bring up a good point. The entrepreneurial community here is strong.
Yep.
There's a lot of organizations and resources, SMU being one of them, that encourages and fosters that community and has resources, like y'all said, to kind of help guide that next era of entrepreneurs in the Dallas region. So it's really cool to see y'all be a success case here, right? And I'm really excited to see what's next for N08. I know you have a lot in the works, and you've clearly proven at each point in, like you said, these arcs of the business, that even when big challenges hit, or you feel like we've been going down the wrong road, we have to pivot and we need to make key structural decisions. You do so thoughtfully, you do so strategically, and you find success on the other end. So it's definitely been inspiring to hear y'all's story, and I'm very excited to see what's next for y'all.
So, our business is currently focused a lot on funded startups and mid-market enterprise, but we're seeing that our services are becoming even more acceptable now in the enterprise world. So that's the next big thing for us, is to do more business with local, large companies, and so that's been great, and we're looking at Austin as the next market to go to as well.
Nice. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to say, those HQs are moving to Dallas and Austin.
That's right.
Big time.
That's right.
So the ceiling is high for
That's
N08.
right.
Awesome. All right, Jeff, Rishi, thank you so much for joining us on the road to the Dallas 100. It was such a pleasure getting to pick your brains. Again, folks, we've been chatting with Rishi Khanna and Jeff Francis, both who are founders. Jeff is president and Rishi is CEO of N08. If folks want to learn a little bit more about your company, where should we point them?
Well, eno8.com.
Yep. We're both active on LinkedIn too.
So. Easy
We're
enough.
very active on LinkedIn.
Perfect. All right, Jeff, Rishi, thank you again for your time. And I'm looking forward to seeing y'all hopefully at the awards this year and staying in touch to see where N08 goes next. So,
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Yeah, of course. And thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of The Road to the Dallas 100. Again, showcasing the fastest growing privately held businesses in Dallas and previous winners of SMU Cox's Dallas 100 Awards. If you think you've got what it takes and you want to apply to maybe get on your own road to the Dallas 100, well, guess what? Today is the last day to apply for this year's award ceremony. So make sure that you are applying yourself. Again, deadline today at dallas100.com. The biggest celebration for successful entrepreneurs in Big D. All right, folks, thanks again for joining us. I'm Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and thanks so much for joining us on the road to the Dallas 100, the biggest show in Dallas since Dallas. We'll catch you on the next one.